There are moments in life when a person feels watched, opposed, or quietly undermined, and the experience can be difficult to explain in a grounded, honest way. For some, the language of modern culture reaches for terms like gang stalking to describe that feeling. Whether one uses that term or not, the deeper human experience behind it, pressure, isolation, betrayal, and perceived pursuit, is not new. It shows up in one of the oldest texts we have. The life and writings of David give us a window into what it looks like to live through seasons of intense opposition without losing oneself. David does not speak in abstract theology when he writes about his enemies. He describes something immediate and personal. In Psalm 56, he talks about people who twist his words, who conspire, who watch his steps. There is a sense of being tracked, misrepresented, and studied in ways that feel invasive. In Psalm 59, he describes men lying in wait for his life, not because he has wronged them, but because they have chosen hostility. These are not casual disagreements. They are sustained patterns of opposition. What is striking is that David does not deny what is happening. He does not minimize it to make himself feel better. He names it clearly. He even asks God to record it, to take account of his tears. There is something deeply human in that response. When a person feels targeted or misunderstood, one of the first instincts is to want the truth to be seen and remembered. David leans into that instinct, but he does not stop there. He refuses to let the behavior of others define his inner state completely. He describes the pressure, and then he redirects his focus upward, anchoring himself in something beyond the moment. The pressure is not only external, it also takes the form of damaged reputation. In Psalm 35, David speaks about false witnesses rising against him, accusing him of things he does not recognize. In Psalm 109, he describes mouths that speak with deceit and hatred without cause. Anyone who has experienced being misrepresented knows how destabilizing that can be. It is not just the action itself, but the ripple effect it creates in relationships and perception. David's response here is revealing. He does not chase every lie in an attempt to control the narrative. He appeals to a higher standard of judgment. He places the weight of truth in God's hands, rather than exhausting himself trying to manage every human opinion. At the same time, he continues to pray. In some cases, he even prays for those who oppose him. That does not mean he trusts them. It means he refuses to let their actions reshape his character. Some of the most painful moments come not from distant enemies, but from people who were once close. In Psalm 41 and Psalm 55, David describes betrayal from a friend, someone he trusted, someone who shared life with him. He admits that this kind of wound cuts deeper than anything an enemy could do. There is no attempt to hide the emotional impact. He grieves it directly. He even expresses a desire to withdraw, to step away from the environment that is causing harm. That response matters. David does not equate faith with constant exposure to hurt. He allows himself distance. He recognizes that stepping back can be part of wisdom, not a failure of forgiveness. This is one of the clearest places where the tension shows up. He continues to trust God, but he does not pretend that proximity to harmful people is required. There are also moments where the imagery becomes almost overwhelming. In Psalm 22, he describes being surrounded, encircled, closed in from every side. In Psalm 31, he writes about hearing whispers everywhere, sensing conspiracy and fear on all sides. These passages capture something psychological as much as physical. When pressure builds over time, it can begin to feel like it is everywhere, like there is no clear escape. And yet, even in those moments, David introduces a turning point. He does not stay in the spiral. He acknowledges the intensity, and then he says, "But I trust in you." That shift is not denial. It is a deliberate recentering. It is the decision to anchor identity and stability in something that is not controlled by the behavior of others. The writings in the Psalms are not the only place where this theme appears. The narrative in 1 Samuel shows that David's experiences were not just internal. Saul actively pursued him, sending people to watch his movements, tracking his location through informants, and forcing him to move constantly to survive. This was not imagined pressure. It was real pursuit, carried out through networks of people and authority. David's response in those situations is both practical and spiritual. He leaves when he needs to leave. He hides when staying would be dangerous. He surrounds himself with a small group of trusted individuals. He seeks guidance before making decisions. And perhaps most importantly, he refuses revenge when the opportunity presents itself. There are moments where he could have ended the threat by taking Saul's life, and he chooses not to. He draws a line, not because Saul's actions are acceptable, but because David refuses to become shaped by the same kind of corruption. When you look across all of these moments together, a pattern begins to emerge. David tells the truth about what he is experiencing. He processes it honestly, emotionally, and spiritually. He takes action where necessary, creating distance and setting boundaries. He refuses to let the behavior of others redefine his character, and he consistently anchors himself in something higher than the situation in front of him. This is what makes his writing so enduring. It does not offer a simple answer or a clean resolution. It offers a way of holding tension without collapsing into it. It shows that a person can feel surrounded without becoming consumed, can be opposed without losing identity, and can seek justice without surrendering to bitterness. For anyone trying to make sense of experiences that feel like sustained opposition, David's words do not force a label onto the situation. Instead, they offer a framework for response. They remind us that being aware of harm does not require becoming defined by it. They show that faith is not passive, and that wisdom often includes both spiritual trust and practical action. In the end, David never claims that everything is fine, but he also never accepts that everything is lost. He lives in the space between those two extremes, and in doing so, he leaves behind a record of what it looks like to endure pressure without losing the core of who you are.